Good morning everyone. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and it is time for yet another morning with coffee and MTG with me. Let's have a conversation. We're all quarantined at home. Let's talk some magic. Let's keep each other company. This has been always a lot of fun. We're on our fourth week of doing this. We've been doing this for now 3 weeks straight. We're on our fourth. This is going great. It has had such a really good reception. How can I stop from here? So we are still going to keep the conversation coming. If you have any questions, let me know. Remember, the rules are start your questions with 3 question marks, end it with 3 question marks so I can find your questions very well. And we can start it off talking about a little bit of controversy going on in the Magic world. Can we start off with a little bit of controversy? I'll wait for more people to arrive, but there was a huge banning recently in the Magic community. We've got, like, I believe his name is Austin Bursavich, who got banned for leaking really huge information on Twitter. I mean, basically, we're not on Twitch yet, Gavin. We're not on Twitch. We're close. We are super close. We are. I'll definitely talk about the computer update. We are doing incredibly well with the computer. Computer's all set up. It's doing great, but it's not 100% set up. I was wrestling with it a lot over the weekend, and now I'm trying to load up. What can I put? I'm trying to now move all my files there, which is a bit awkward given the fact that a lot of my stuff is saved on like Mac OS, like readable solid state drive. So I've got to just do a little finessing to get all the information over. So good morning to Chris Yadnak. Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, Lord Magicus. Good morning, Yaskinia. Good morning, Niels. Good morning, Morrow. Good morning, Madcap Skills. Good morning, Chris. The other Chris, we have 2 Chris's, one with a K, one with a C. Nescafe and Chill Day 16, that's right. And you know what? If nobody knows, I reached out to Nescafe on Twitter and they responded. They said, you know what? We work with influencers. If you want to make a proposal, DM us the details and we're going to review it. So maybe I can actually get literally sponsored. They're like, we love your enthusiasm for Nescafe Gold. So, but their DMs were not open. I will still keep talking to them, but it actually looks like maybe I will get some sort of sponsorship. At the very least, I'm going to ask for unlimited coffee, and I have a big family. My brother loves the coffee. Look, this thing's empty because like half of it is just like me, my brother, a little bit of my girlfriend, and you know, whenever my family comes over, they definitely drink down the Nescafe Gold. Good stuff. The dark roast, Nescafe Gold dark roast. Remember, only free advertising for a month, Nescafe, and then I'm pulling the plug unless we make a deal. If we make a deal, I'm gonna keep talking about how I take my sweet taste of Nescafe Gold. Delicious. I can have a million of these. So, good morning, Lantern. Good morning, Kyoka66. And they need to unban Pot of Greed. Yeah, I agree. And look at that, Chris Chanel actually bought Nescafe after all the jokes. It seems hilarious. You know, what does coffee have to do with MTG? But you know what? I mean, we need to keep our brains sharp and active if we want to play good Magic the Gathering. I can't drink Red Bull and all those other energy drinks. It's especially if they're carbonated. They're not for me. I go the old coffee bean way, even if it's like processed and instant coffee. It's all good with me. Mikey J says, good morning, can't stay, but just wanted to stop by. Thanks, Mikey J. No problem. I appreciate you coming by. So, all right, so we'll talk. Okay, maybe I'll quickly talk about my computer. It's together and it's working. We got the Wi-Fi working. All the drivers, I think all the drivers that are necessary are installed. I've downloaded almost all the programs that I need. Almost all the programs, the base programs. There's new stuff that I've never used before that I want to start using, like Streamlabs OBS. Never really got to use this thing before because it was until like a month ago, Streamlabs was never available for Mac OS. And there's going to be other stuff that I want to experiment with because now that I have a Windows PC that I never had because I was using a MacBook. in addition to that, I still have to wait for more files to port over, and then I'm fully operational. And I gotta probably do some things on Twitch, feel it around, try to synchronize things. Apparently, you are not by default automatically synchronized between your voice and your video, and you got to match that up together through trial and error. So before we're actually live on Twitch, I still have a little bit more fiddling around to do, but it's coming, it's going. Oh, super chat by Lantern. No comment or question, but I appreciate the super chats. Thank you very much, Lantern. Good morning to Lantern. It's an excellent morning to both of us. So computer online, we are definitely, my brother's coming over today. We are going to record videos on the new computer. That's 100% certainty. And we are going to start throwing, and then I should be able to pump out content a lot more frequently now. I won't be, I won't be like hampered or like, there's a lot of things that are slowing my content creation down because I'm sharing a computer with my girlfriend, and now I have my own computer that I can spend all my entire time on. Yeah, Joshua Dutton, we can go look at Pioneer Spirits again. I don't know how much content of that we'll do. Probably that might be part of my streams as well, because I would like to we can do a variety of things while I'm streaming, especially given the fact I don't want to do anything super hyper competitive while I'm streaming, because they're just gonna stream snipe us. I'm pretty practical here. The streamers are just on a negative free roll. People are gonna always look me up. I think they've always been looking me up. There's a lot of opponents where in the first, I don't know, 1 minute, sometimes they're taking a long time to like actually get their game going, and I'm pretty certain it's because they're either looking me up on Twitch or something. They want to see into my hand. It's not enough that I'm a Merfolk master and I basically play Merfolk 99% of the time. They also want to know what's in my hand, and that's basically what's going to happen. So I have no problem experimenting with a lot of things because I know I'm going to be streaming at a more casual level than a competitive level. Now that being said, okay, what can we talk about this new controversy right now? In the Magic world, let's see. MTG Hall of Fame bot. What's his name? Austin Bursavich, one of the better players on MTG Arena, recently found out that the MPL was given privileged information, that there was going to be a standard Pro Tour online on MTG Arena, and they had something like 1.5 to 2 weeks notice more than anyone else. And by the time that everyone else would know about it, they would be a much shorter distance. So basically, Wizards gave under a non-disclosure agreement to the MPL, we're going to have a Pro Tour. It's going to be standard. It's going to be on MTG Arena. Start preparing. And that gives all other competitors a huge disadvantage because they are not playtesting on MTG Arena. They're not even playtesting standard. They're trying to do two other things. That would give them a huge lead time for anyone who had this information. So Bursavich says, do you know what? This is unfair. This is unfair to all competitive players. And he let everyone know on Twitter that the MPL had a huge advantage over everybody else. So basically leaked this information that this Pro Tour is coming up. I can't tell if it was public knowledge by the time that he said or everyone learned about the Pro Tour through Bursavich, because I wasn't that in tuned with the situation. But I do know that Wizards approached Austin Bursavich asking, who told you this? Who told you? We want to know. We are doing an investigation. Who told you this? Bursavich declined to tell anybody who informed him of the upcoming Pro Tour. And what Wizards of the Coast ended up doing was banning him indefinitely on Paper Magic, on MTG Arena, and on Magic the Gathering Online. They said that if you want to get unbanned, if you want to appeal, they didn't actually say that you can get unbanned. They said if you would like to appeal the decision, come with the information that we are asking of you. So they're trying to, extort this information out of him by through the banning. So this is beyond ridiculous. I mean, for example, he's not a primary source. He's not under any non-disclosure agreement. He doesn't, if anything else, like Wizards should be paying attention to everyone at the MPL. Now, apparently, through many other sources now on Twitter, saying that there were a lot of people who already knew about this. Because amongst the MPL, I'm sure each one of them told like one or two people, you know, hey, look, there's a Pro Tour coming up. It's like standard, start preparing. So it was an open secret for a lot of people in the know, or a lot of people close to the MPL members. But it was only Burcevic who finally, you know, told everybody else. Who knows? Maybe Burcevic didn't even know from a primary source. Maybe it was from a secondary source. And then, like, what's Wizards going to do from there? Like, investigate. What if it was like an anonymous secondary source? So anyway, he wasn't a primary source. I don't think he. I think it is wrong that he's getting punished for trying to make aware to the entire world, you know, that the playing field wasn't fair in the first place. Because the MPL members are definitely getting a huge advantage. They can immediately start preparing for this event before anyone else. Not to mention, because the Pro Tour is going to be held on Arena, if you do not have a Windows computer, or if you need to get the components to run Arena on your computer, that takes time. That takes time right now in the world crisis. I would know. I tried to build a computer and I waited like 3 weeks for the shipping of for one part to come in. So if you need a much better computer, you need to make upgrades, you need to buy something new for this event, you need better lead time. You might need that extra 2 weeks in order to make it happen. So there is a privileged group that got an advantage. Burcevic let loose to let everyone know that this advantage was being privileged to some people. Wizards not happy about this. Wizards not happy, and I don't think it is. It seems pretty unethical to ban a secondary source to the information. He's not an MPL. Burcevic is not an MPL member whatsoever. So he shouldn't be the person blamed. Anyway, it's a weird situation for Wizards. And I don't know how anyone else feels about this, but it's sort of scary to think that, you know, if you leak something that's supposed to be confidential of Wizards, you could potentially get banned. What if you start posting pictures of sets that you saw leaked on Reddit? Oh yeah, I'm going to post this picture of these leaked cards that I found on Reddit. Could you get banned for that now? Is that a bannable offense? Like, what are you supposed to do about this? I mean, it would appear almost as if it was still relatively public. I mean, it's not technically public knowledge. Or I don't know, what can you say once some information is public enough? At what point, you know, at what point are you bannable for stuff like this? Anyway, it's a gross situation. A lot of people, I don't really see anyone in defense of Wizards of the Coast on this. And it's, I'm usually pretty pro Wizards of the Coast on a lot of situations. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt on a lot of in a lot of cases, but like they're making it really hard for me in this situation. As a fellow competitive player that likes to see the integrity of the game as even as possible, I appreciate what he's done, and I do not like the precedent that Wizards of the Coast has set by banning a whistleblower in this case. So anyway, that's the information. That is the latest like scandal going on in the world right now, and I hope everything gets resolved with him. And Wizards of the Coast does the right thing, and really should just be eyeing their MPL and not people outside of it. So it's clearly the MPL wasn't. Probably a lot of people within the MPL broke their non-disclosure agreement, and maybe they have to shuffle them up, or I don't know what, but it really shouldn't be Austin Burcevic. All right, let's get into some questions. Remember, if you have any questions, leave 3 question marks at the beginning, leave 3 question marks at the end of your question. Makes it easy for me to identify the questions that you want to have answered while I read through all the other comments of the chat. Or I want to ignore the comments of the chat. not ignore, but like I'm digging for the questions. If I have to read everything, then that means I am I'm missing out on questions. Lassie says, "Do you like Pepsi? I'm drinking it right now. I have nothing against Pepsi, but I am a Coca-Cola person right now." Lassie also says, I'm building a Narhu Miha combo deck in Pioneer with Flicker spells. Do you think it's any good? I have no idea because I don't know what the deck list looks like. But when we go to Twitch, I'll be able to look at, I'll be willing to look at deck lists that people want to get some critique on because of, what's it called? Because I can share the list with everyone. Right now, I'm just on my phone. You just see my face. I can't share. Like, if anyone submits a deck list, no one else can see it. So until then, I can't really evaluate any deck lists. Looks like we have... Okay, Kyle Lynch. Does modern Merfolk need anything other than a 1-drop? Not really. No, I mean, to be brutally honest, like, that's all that we're missing. If you look at all the successful decks in Modern, they always have something really good to do on turn 1. So, I mean, and one of the reasons Humans is so successful and powerful is because they've got, like, 12 relatively great things to do on turn 1. They can play Noble Hierarch, which synergizes with their deck because Noble Hierarch is a human. They can play Champion of the Parish, which is a very powerful 1-drop, or they can play Aether Vial. And Aether Vial is going to help snowball a lot of threats into play at once, and also get around counter magic. And you can play the creatures at flash speed. You look at Burn. Burn, if you look at the history of Burn, it was a budget crap deck for a long time until one event happened. The printing of Monastery Swiftspear. That was the card that put Burn over the top. That was the moment Burn became a very serious contender in Magic the Gathering. It was also the same moment that they printed Treasure Cruise, but even after Treasure Cruise got banned, Burn was a very real archetype for even until now. So not only did they have Goblin Guide that they could play on turn 1, they also had Monastery Swiftspear, and Swiftspear in a large part has also contributed to a lot of archetypes getting off the ground. There was Blue-Red Delver, which we don't really see that much anymore because Delver is just sort of a worse Death Shadow deck. But we do see the Mono-Red Prowess deck also utilize Monastery Swiftspear in a really big way. So Swiftspear, those 1-drops really matter because if you're not doing anything important on turn 1, then you're playing a turn behind all the other decks that are playing things good on turn 1. Infect plays Noble Hierarch or Glistener Elf on turn 1. What other decks could I say? For a time being, Spirits had both Mausoleum Wanderer and Aether Vial. They didn't have 12 great 1-drops like Humans did, but, I think Mausoleum Wanderer is a really good premium 1-drop that they could have in their deck. What other current decks? Thoughtseize is a very good 1-drop in a lot of the archetypes that use black. What you're able to do on turn 1 really snowballs for the rest of the game. The fact that Merfolk very often starts their game on turn 2 is it makes it clunky. So the disadvantage of Merfolk is that it's like a pretty clunky deck, but we would completely eliminate the clunk factor if we had one great 1-drop. When Commander Speaker is good, it's great in the metagame. But if it could be something a little bit better than that, that would be fantastic. That would put Merfolk over the top. That's why I keep promoting the 1-drop. We need a Merfolk 1-drop to really take this deck to a whole new level. And it has to be powerful. Not so much good in utility. I don't mind. I would love utility, and hey, I love things like Mistcaller, all right? I love cards like that. I love utility creatures, but we need power. We need something that's strictly powerful, that deals damage, that can get our opponent's life total from 20 to 0. That's what Merfolk needs right now. Chris Schnell asks, would a modern Wild West on Magic the Gathering Online be decent, as in all things unbanned for a definite month or two to see what could or be unbanned? So Chris Schnell, I get this question a lot, and what you're describing is No Ban List Modern, which has been utilized quite a few times. Star City Games has an annual event, No Ban List Modern. My local game stores had a few No Ban List Modern events. I heard a lot of other local game stores have done the same thing. And I can tell you what does happen. Eldrazi takes over. Eye of Ugin is just too strong. If they banned Eye of Ugin in No Ban List Modern, that would be a much more interesting event. But, so while there is just a ton of Eldrazi decks, there's still other archetypes existing. Like, even in a slew of Eldrazi decks, Brian Bronduin did win with, I believe, a Counterbalance Top Miracle deck. Because you get Counterbalance, Terminus, and Sensei's Divining Top in the format. and that archetype ended up winning. I think he won. He either got second place or he won a no ban list modern event. There's Death Shadow. There's a lot of archetypes that you would normally see. So it's playable. Like it's a playable format. The only problem with it is Ayavugan. Like very consistently, Eldrazi just dominates because with Ayavugan you can spew a shitload of things onto the battlefield, and you still have access to Chalice of the Void, which means you can still play Chalice on 0 and 1, which nails all the other no ban list modern decks. So it's playable, and you know what? Hell, maybe that could be a real new format that Wizards should, think about it. From what I hear, the format's playable. It will be a little bit more like, it probably will be a little bit more like Legacy in that, you could die a lot more earlier than you do in normal Modern. Like Modern's Modern because it has the rule that you're supposed to live on average to turn 4, whereas I don't know if they can promise that in no ban list Modern. But it's, from what I hear, playable format, just Ayavugan needs to be banned. Great question, though. Good morning, Johan. Good morning, all new people. That deserves a cup of coffee. That deserves a cup of coffee. Quan Morris asks, how do I make my commander decks different? They all seem the same because they all have ramp and big stuff. I would say, it sounds like you're playing the same colors over and over again with the same idea. What you need to do is definitely play drastically different color combinations. So like when you tell me ramp, it sounds like you're playing with like a lot of green. So green cards that help find more lands, ramp into more lands, stuff like that. Maybe play a non-green commander deck. Play something drastically outside your comfort zone. Play Grixis or something. Play Grixis, play blue-black, play red-blue, go mono red, mono blue. So there's going to be other ways of building the deck if you restrict yourself from the colors that support certain strategies. And I understand, like, if you're going the ramp strategy, like basically green is the color that ramps. The other colors don't. Like, you're not going to ramp very much unless you're ramping with artifacts. You're not going to ramp with black or blue or red or anything like that. So I would say change the colors that you play with your commander decks. Maybe go monocolor to really make it difficult to ramp, and take a different approach. Or if you still need a lot of mana, use certain artifacts that help add that mana. Things like I don't want to say things like Grim Monolith or anything like that, but even like Everflowing Chalice, for example. So try to get to the top end in a different way. Gavin says, we got a lot of new viewers today. Yes, we do. A lot of new viewers. Okay, okay, so remember, if you have any questions, 3 question marks before, 3 question marks at the end. I just noticed this is a question. Daniel Replays asks, hey Nikachu, any advice for Dredge here? I can't seem to beat Merfolk. Well, so the deal is you want to keep the Merfolk off the battlefield as much as possible, and you're going to win in the long game. If the Merfolk opponent like brings a bunch of hate cards, there's not really much you can do about it. From what I understand, if they are bringing in Ashiok, be heavy on a creature plan because you need to kill Ashiok physically with creatures. If you see your opponent is much more heavily on artifacts like Grafdigger's Cage and Relic of Progenitus, you can shave a few creatures in order to find those, to replace them with artifact hate. Keep the creatures off the battlefield. Bring in a lot of removal. Removal is good. Because if Merfolk can't kill you like within a reasonable amount of time, then your dredging will just destroy us in the long run. I do not feel comfortable winning a long game against Dredge. Usually doesn't happen. Well, unless I have artifact hate or some sort of hate on the battlefield that has been completely uncontested. If the Merfolk player just has a ton of hate against you, there's just not much you can do about that, because I mean that's the point of your strategy is, I wouldn't say glass cannon, but it's undermined by certain hate cards, and if you can't find those hate cards, then you would be doomed. That's all. I think that's all the advice I can give about that. But like you're probably going to win the long game. So if you just have enough removal to keep sniping things down, if I can't really do a number to your life total, then I'm going to lose in the long run for sure. Michael Sheets asks, do you think Yorion could be an easier companion than Lurrus since it lets us maintain mono blue or Simic man bases? Yes, I think it's possible, not only easier, maybe it's even better. I have not even play tested this card yet, and I don't even think there's like a really huge cost into adding it. Like maybe my Island Walk Lords aren't going to come as often as it used to, but it will still be like a really good. I think the deck will still do relatively well. The only problem with Yorion is that it costs 5 mana, so likely we're not actually ever casting it very much. It's hard to get to our 4th mana source. 5th mana source is even worse, or even less likely, unless you start messing with the ratio of lands so that you always get to 5 mana, which in that case we might flood out a little bit more often than we used to. But maybe it's not that bad, because every time that we flood out, we get to cast a 4 or 5 flying creature. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. So potentially, yeah, it could be easier. It could be better. And probably, I don't know if it has more or less synergy than Lurrus, because, you know, bringing back Silvergill Adepts from the graveyard, from the dead, not bad. Not bad at all. So, but yeah, I definitely will experiment with Lurrus, maybe in a stream or something. And we'll see how it works out. Definitely unexplored territory. Niels Nielsen asks, I have been asking a lot of questions around what decks in Modern is hard to play in playing Eldrazi-tron. Do you think it's an easy, medium, or hard to play? I think it's medium. Eldrazi-tron, I think, is probably in the medium category. Definitely not super hard, because the more powerful a deck is, I should say, first off, the more powerful a deck is, the more easier it is to play, because like your mistakes are easily forgiven by just super powerful cards. Okay, so let's say you screw up a million times, but you top deck All Is Dust and you just wipe your opponent's board. Easy game. I know they don't always play All Is Dust, but you know that's basically my example. Or you go like Karn into Ensnaring Bridge, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're winning the game anyway. So Eldrazi-tron has a lot of powerful lines, a lot of powerful cards that make the difficulty of playing it lower. I don't know if it's the easiest matchup, because the deck is still pretty clunky, and clunk makes things difficult. Like when you have a very fluid deck like Burn or Death Shadow. Well, I wouldn't say Death Shadow is necessarily easy either, but like if you're capable of casting your spells pretty comfortably, that makes the deck like that makes the deck easy. But Eldrazi-tron is still, even with Tron mana, is still a pretty clunky deck to play. So I would say it's in the medium category. Which is why the deck has had so much success. It's not a super difficult deck, and it's really powerful. Michael Stewart asks, do you think the Ozolith is worth a slot in the Hardened Scales archetype? You mean Hardened Scales Affinity? Yeah, absolutely. And that's like partially why Hardened Scales is back, because of the Ozolith. And I would not be surprised at all, that once they ban Lurrus, Hardened Scales is gonna stick around because of the innovation of the Ozolith. I don't think Lurrus is that important to the archetype. I just think that I didn't even think that Mox Opal was all that important to the archetype. Like, Hardened Scales never abused Mox Opal like the classic Affinity deck abused Mox Opal. It was just like you just curved out a little bit better. Like you could play 2/2 drops by turn 3, for example. You just had a random extra card to fetch to the Ravager, but it was not really a back-breaking advantage. Hardened Scales still, for the most part, built a board up to a point where on turn 4 they could kill you, that I don't think was enabled all the time by Mox Opal. So the fact that they now have Ozolith, a really good card, like a really good synergistic card with this archetype, big deal. And I think Hardened Scales is still going to be around after Lurrus gets banned because of the Ozolith. So good morning to everyone who's just showing up. Good morning. Wherever you are, if this is your first cup, of coffee. If this is your second cup, first cup of tea, second cup of tea. I'm a tea person too. Gotta love that. Gotta love that caffeine. Send it through my veins. Let's just put it right here. But then I wouldn't enjoy the sweet, delicious taste of Nescafe Gold. You can only get from Nescafe. Dark roast. Nescafe, there's two of them. I drink the dark roast one. If you get the other one and you're not as satisfied, don't blame me. I warned you, the dark roast is the way to go. Great questions. Lassie says, I think most of your fans are from Germany right now. I mean, it's possible. Because I'm doing this in the morning, like in North American time, that means that the people who are off work are in Europe. So like a lot of the Europeans are available to watch this show right now, and a lot of the Americans, unfortunately, are in what's it called? They're at work. They're at work if they're at work. Even if they're at home, they are at work. They want to divide their attention. Okay, Alexa Bejeliak, why don't you play Jace the Mind Sculptor in Merfolk? Bottom line is it's really expensive and does not have a huge impact on the game. For 4 mana, I want that thing to do something amazing. I want it to do somersaults, and Jace doesn't really do that. I mean, at best, you're just drawing one card, and then it's going to die in the next turn. I know it's a 1-card win condition, which can sometimes be good in some matchups, but for the most part, it's just too clunky with not any impact to our game plan. If Jace the Mind Sculptor could bounce permanents, I would strongly consider it, because it would be an answer to Ensnaring Bridge, but it only bounces creatures, even though it's my own. Just not enough synergy, too vulnerable in today's modern metagame. Very hard for a dinky little creature-based deck to defend Jace, so that's why it doesn't see any play in Modern Merfolk. People have tried. People have tried. Gavin Stewart asks, what cards you ban/unban to make Modern the perfect format in my eyes? Good question. Starts. Okay, maybe I'm a madman. Maybe I'm a madman. But I would like to see Deathrite Shaman back. I would like to see Deathrite Shaman back. Like I don't say that with 100% certainty, and I don't know all the cards that we should unban, and I don't know if it would make it a perfect format to unban things like Splinter Twin, but I think we can definitely unban things like Umezawa's Jite. I think we could unban Deathrite Shaman, especially since like Wizards has made clear that more and more cards are going to be graveyard oriented, and the only decks that can influence the graveyard right now are like white and green, and so to give black access to some graveyard hate would also even the playing field. Like, I know there's a lot of generic graveyard hate, but it's okay in some ways. It's enough, but I think Deathrite Shaman is a very interesting card. The only problem with Deathrite Shaman is if it converges archetypes, but at the time it didn't. There was like a lot of different Deathrite Shaman decks, like a lot of different Deathrite Shaman decks, and I am not really even certain that they should have banned Deathrite Shaman in Legacy. I think that was a mistake. I think the core problem was Gitaxian Probe. I think that was a really big issue, and they banned Gitaxian Probe with Deathrite Shaman at the same time. I would love to know what happens to Legacy if they ban Gitaxian Probe but they let Deathrite Shaman still exist, because it still is a police to a lot of really stupid nonsense. Yeah, but so Lord Magicka says Deathrite Shaman needs to go in Legacy because too much 4-color soup. Well, that 4-color soup won't know what to do without Gitaxian Probe, and I think we would see different archetypes sprouting around. Like, my biggest problem is that someone Gitaxian Probes you, and now their brainstorms and their ponders are really powerful because they can dig for the cards that they need. But if they don't know what they are looking for, then now that's a completely different challenge. And it might I'm not certain that it will promote like different Delver archetypes or different value archetypes. But anyway, I would prefer to have seen what happened in Legacy if they just ban that card, wait another 6 months, whatever, and then ban Deathrite Shaman if it was still necessary. Because I think the brainstorm decks that were utilizing Deathrite Shaman were really abusing Gitaxian Probe. Like that was my opinion. Gitaxian Probe was for sure an enormous problem. So I would be interested in seeing Deathrite Shaman back. I don't know if this is like the perfect modern. Like we could talk about like the no ban list modern again. I have no big problems with how modern is right now. In some way, if you want to make like a lot of people might consider the perfect modern as just like creating a 93-94 format where it's, you know, just play modern up to 2000, up to the right before they banned Splinter Twin, and that's modern. So that's a possibility. So I don't know what the perfect modern, like, I know you're asking me what the perfect modern in my eyes are, and I would like to have as many cards unbanned as possible. I would like as many cards unbanned as possible, so long as they're not creating like ridiculously stupid decks. So like things like Eye of Ugin definitely stay on the banned list. I don't know about Birthing Pod. I know there's a lot of answers to Birthing Pod. In general, my feeling is we don't unban Birthing Pod. But if we tried it to see what happened, because like even if you try to combo off, like there are ways of interacting with creatures and play with removal that might slow the pod deck down by another turn. Like even if well whatever, it's difficult to say because like they can pod always has an opportunity to combo off to a victory from 1 mana dork, 8 if they're at 10 life and they have 4 mana up, and they will only do that when you're tapped out. Otherwise they'll just go for some value plan. Like it's still in my mind, if you have Voice of Resurgence out and you pod it away for Renegade Rallier, bring your Voice of Resurgence back, you got like a lot of power on the battlefield, like a ton of power. If you have like if you had 1 mana dork, the Voice Elemental is now a 4/4. You still have a Voice of Resurgence and you have a 3/2 Renegade Rallier. I mean, that is a ridiculous board state for very, very little, and still it like eats up removal a ton, just a ton. Let's see. Closest tribe to merfolk in terms of tempo and functionality? Ask Yeskinia. It's got to be humans. It's got to be humans. Humans has got to be the closest tribe to merfolk. It's still a tempo deck as well. It is still, I would say it's a more streamlined merfolk deck. Like they've got the 1-drops. That's the difference. So it's not a clunky deck. Okay, so I guess like if you want to go like the closest thing to merfolk would be Spirits, because Spirits is a little bit more in that clunky range, playing with Drogskull Captain, Spell Queller, and if you want to go Bant, Collected Company. But so that would be the closest tribal deck that feels very similar to merfolk. But if you want the more like competitive version, then definitely something like Humans. Thanks for asking, Lassie, but I don't need more mods. Thank you very much. Chad Duchat asks, what advice do you have to beat life gain decks and control decks in Historic? I am almost to Diamond on Arena, and many of my opponents are using those archetypes as I climb to the ranks. So, okay, so first control decks, just throw down, okay, so if you've got a counterspell in hand, Frilled Mystic, just throw down as many creatures as possible, as humanly possible, because you know that you've got the Frilled Mystic to counter the board sweeper that you have. Now, if you don't have a counterspell, play your non-flash creatures first, get about 2 of them on the battlefield, and then start, you know, swinging damage in, getting in damage. You could even go to 3 maybe. And then when they play a sweeper, flash in your creatures. Flash in the Brazen Borrower. Flash in the, what's it called, Merfolk Trickster. So use the flash creatures afterwards to replace your creatures to keep getting in that damage. So that's advice that I would have against the control decks. Now the life gain decks, you really want to do, so there's 2 parts to this against the life gain decks. You want to create a board stall with the board with Kumena, Tyrant of Erazka. You can get to a point where you're drawing cards. You can sacrifice creatures to block, or if you can, double block and kill something, and whatever, lose something, because you're always drawing a card with Kumena. Always keep drawing cards with Kumena, and then when you have enough creatures in play, start like tapping 5, make the board state big so that they can't attack into you. Discourage them to attack into you. That's the first part of it. But the second part is that they sometimes have flying creatures that you have to deal with. Now you can deal with the flyers by making sure that you have something like Merfolk Trickster, so that when they attack you, you trickster it, make it lose flying, and then block it, because that is a consistent source of damage that you have to deal with. So I beat the life gain decks very consistently by using this strategy. Now I have to say that if you are so super aggressive that maybe you can like race them from the beginning and just go attack, 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 attack if you're on the play and you have a good curve. But in general, I am a lot more defensive in this matchup, and I also try, like, don't throw your trickster away on anything. You want to, like, if you trickster Daxos, it just dies. So that is a good place to use your trickster. Hold back your trickster because you need it to target the flying creatures attacking you. You need it to kill Daxos on the spot. So be careful about stuff like that. And then hopefully you can do better with the deck. So good luck with it, Chad. David Friddle, what do you think about Slivers in Modern? I think it needs help. The thing about Slivers is that it's still a bit clunky, and it's missing some very good. It's got some good Slivers. I like the flying one, because it gives all your other, it gives you like good evasion. Like having flying creatures is good enough evasion in Modern. It's not Island Walk, but you know, it's good enough. But it needs something like Crystalline Sliver. It needs a little bit more some more value oriented stuff. Maybe there is, I don't know, maybe there is something a little bit more to Slivers that people haven't explored. Maybe they should go the 5-color route using the humans, something similar to the humans mana base. I don't know, because I like Slivers as a tribe, and it's got enough lords. Like that's the most important thing. It needs lords. If you don't have lords, then you're screwed. It's got, and I believe it's got Muscle Sliver and Sinew Sliver, I think that's called. Or I don't know, but I believe that Slivers has 2 lords, which is good, which is the baseline for making this deck strong. I don't know, maybe I should brew a Slivers deck. Does anyone interested in making Slivers? I love that tribe. When I was first getting into Magic, like back in 1999, I thought like Slivers, that is fucking cool what Slivers is doing. And there's like multiple colors, and they pump each other, and it's like the Lord of Atlantis effect. And it's not just you that gets it. Everyone gets it. So it's similar to Lord of Atlantis in that it's helping your opponent if they have Slivers. So I think the tribe is awesome. I would be very interested in building something like that, because it's got all the cards. So, and I think it has all the 1-drops. The fact that they have this flying thing is very, very important. So I don't know. Maybe we should build a Slivers deck sometime. They've got all. I think the only thing that they're missing that I wish they had is what's it called? Crystalline Sliver, so that their slivers cannot be targeted by spells or abilities. If that card gets printed, that deck is like tier 1 immediately. It goes from nothing to everything in a flash. Then every deck that tries to target your creatures gets screwed by that. So that's what they are missing. That's what they still need. Yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Because there's still so much removal in Modern. If they like snipe things down one by one, it's difficult. And so you may not be that much better off than, say, humans. And they don't have that many like enter the battlefield effects to really leverage going tribal. Nielsen asked, what would you like to see banned in Modern? There are cards. It's not coming to me right now. It's like something to the effect of maybe like, what's it called? I would like to see Creeping Chill banned, but I don't know if that's a card that they could ban. There's also cards like, what's it called? There's also cards like Walking Ballista that I would like to see banned, just because I think the card is stupid. Like it's really good in the early game. It's really good as a win condition. It's really, really efficient. It's very frustrating as like a creature-based deck. So those, like Creeping Chill, for example, it's a strange card to ban because it's only good for Dredge, but it would bring Dredge to a point that like is human, basically. Dredge is like a really powerful deck, mostly off the back of Creeping Chill, at least for me. I don't have a problem with a lot of the other cards. Like, I won't have to play so much Graveyard Hate when Dredge is possible, when Dredge is popular, because I will at least beat them through normal means some decent chunk of the time. But because of Creeping Chill, Dredge starts at like 24 life after a shock, and I start at 14. Like, and it's impossible to race them. It's impossible to race that deck. The only plan right now against Dredge is stabilize with Graveyard Hate and then just win the game eventually. That's like the plan to do with this stuff. Oh, we got super chats. Thank you very much, Lord Magicus. Big heart. Thank you very much. Super chat. How would you feel about an Eternal Artisan format similar to Pauper? Commons and uncommons only with a ban list. I would love it. I think there's nothing wrong with expanding like formats like this. I mean, if you can have Pauper, why not make another format with make commons and uncommons? Why not make a format maybe with no mythics allowed, or no planeswalkers allowed, or one way or another? There's like so much room for different formats, and if commons and uncommons, and it sounds like to me from at least the Pauper community, and I've talked to some hardcore Pauper players, they don't really like where Pauper is going because the games drag out for forever. They take forever to. There's like no good win conditions in Pauper, and it needs some way of like closing games at a competitive level. Maybe at a casual level, it's maybe it's more fun because the games don't end so quickly, and you at least, even if the game takes forever, it feels like a game to those players. But maybe we need a little bit more aggressive format where there are like win conditions that can finish the game off within a reasonable amount of time instead of just grinding the hell out of your opponent over like 30 turns. So yeah, I think that's totally possible. But there's so many like crazy powerful uncommons that people don't even know that are uncommon. Things like Ether Vial and Force of Will. Force of Will is legal in this format. Is it fair? It might be fair anyway. Like so long as there's no combo deck that can really abuse Force of Will, and of course, you could always ban Force of Will if it's really necessary. Remember, in Alliances, that was an uncommon. I was there. I was around during the days that you could buy a Force of Will for $2. $2 Canadian. That's like $1.20 American. Oh, those were the days. And I don't know where those Force of Wills went. When I got back into the game, like in 2010, I'm like, where's my Force of Wills? I definitely owned Force of Wills. Gone. Just gone. Absolutely gone. So yeah, I totally believe that another format like this could exist, but all it takes is you build it, and if they come, then Wizards will support it. Just basically how it was with Pauper. If it has enough from the ground roots community support, then it will happen. Or Wizards just forces it into your face like they did with what's it called, Brawl, and I guess it worked. It ended up working out in the end. So another super chat. Thank you, Chris Yednak. Super chat. Sedge Sliver regeneration. So that's not too bad, but it's not perfect, especially since I think that regeneration costs 3 mana, and if I were to build a 5-color Sliver deck, that's going to cost if I play things like what's it called, Ancient Ziggurat, I can't use that mana to pay for the regeneration. But totally, that card would definitely see play in the Sliver deck. I mean, you got to have a few of those Sledge Slivers, that's for sure. I think it's the Acidic Sliver that also you can sacrifice and destroy permanents. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, let's get back to some questions. I don't even know where I left off, so I'm just gonna have to jump in somewhere. Okay, Cone Morris, how do you see Mill in Modern? I think Surgical is underrated and can just be a free win sometimes. Mill is like missing, I don't know, 4 or 8 cards from becoming a really good deck. It clearly has something. It clearly has something, and I think the key to Mill is probably some sort of transformational sideboard plan that people are not expecting. I think it's either in that direction or like it has to do something. I'm very impressed with Jace's Phantasm that it can become a 4/4 or 5/5 flying creature if you've milled enough stuff. So I'm impressed with another game plan that the deck can take. But I think I think there's like a lot of weird cards that they have to gut. I think cards like Ensnaring Bridge don't belong in the deck. They probably should take some different active plan to mill the opponent. I don't know where the deck needs to completely go, but I understand it's like a mill deck, and it does it pretty well. It does do it pretty well. So it's like a burn deck, but for the library, and it potentially can take a plan B. So I don't know what needs to change, but I understand that, mill has some results, and in my opinion, that's always a sign that the deck is like between 4 to 8 cards. Okay, let's take if the deck is tier 3, it's like 8 cards away from becoming like something serious. And I don't know what those 8 cards are, but it's there's something there. Obviously, right now it's worthless. It's not the deck is not there. But through enough changes, maybe it can get there. And then, of course, if you're a tier 2 deck, you're like only 4 cards away from becoming something very serious. So I think the value, first off, I think they need to clean up their plan A. The mill strategy needs to be cleaned up. I really don't like cards like, I don't even know, okay, I don't like Ensnaring Bridge. I don't even know if I like this artifact where when you untap things, you mill yourself, because your opponent just has way too much power or influence over how much stuff gets untapped. The slots, Chris. I think you need to change the slots. And we're talking, like, there needs to be some very serious changes to the cards. Like, Tom Ross turned... There's, like, some similarities between 8-Rack and... between the Rack, the archetype, and the mill deck. One of the greatest innovations that Tom Ross did to the Rack deck, he took Ensnaring Bridge out of the deck. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It looks like it works, but it doesn't work. There's just way too many answers to a card like that. So scrap that card. Find some other way to either kill your opponent very quickly or mill your opponent out. So maybe if there is like a planeswalker or an artifact or an enchantment that deals with creatures but also mills them at the same time, that might be more effective. So instead of playing Ensnaring Bridge, what Tom Ross did was play Liliana the Veil. So that can eat a creatures, which slows their clock down, and also can be ticked up to reduce the cards in their opponent's hand to make the rack even better. So that was, I think, I wouldn't say he exactly swapped Ensnaring Bridge for that, but he had like a really good plan there. So I don't know what mill needs to change in their strategy. Random Day says, Mesmeric Orb is the only card in mill that I'm really scared of. Think it's really good. I don't really like cards that do not let my opponent has control over in a lot of it. Like my opponent gets to choose whether they tap things or not. So I'm not a huge fan of things like Mesmeric Orb. If my opponent already by turn 3 has 2 Tarmogoyfs in play and they don't need to tap out to play anything else, Mesmeric Orb isn't really doing anything, or its ability is very weak. So I don't know what needs to be changed in mill, but mill is one of those archetypes like Bogles. Okay, let's take a step back and talk about Bogles for a second. That was a deck for a very long time that was sitting at tier 3, missing just a few cards to go to tier 1. And what was the change that they made? Main deck Leyline of Sanctity. Main deck Leyline of Sanctity was the card to put Bogles over the top, start going really deep day 2 of GPs, to win world championships, to go 5-0 online. That was a fantastic card in the deck. It prevented Thoughtseize and Inquisition of Kozilek on turn 1, so it protected their Bogle, and it also just protected them, period, from edict effects for the rest of the game to protect their creatures. That was the card that took that deck from fringe garbage to something remotely playable to compete and win really big events. So that is a very good example of a deck that had no real presence. That was like Bogles back then, like a long time ago in Modern, was just a deck that to surprise people out of nowhere. But I think Bogles is just a general like a good archetype now because they found the innovation with Leyline of Sanctity. That was the job of Leyline of Sanctity. So the Same thing with Mill. It's missing something. It's just missing something. I don't know what it is. But someone has to like take a really good hard look at all the cards, and are they really doing anything? Is this card really winning me the game? Like, more often than not. You can't, or like when actually, okay, this is how I would word it. Does this card in Mill win me games? Does it really win me games more often than 50%? It can't be a card like, Mesmeric Orb might feel like it's doing something, but you might have to say, is it actually winning? Like, does it actually win me games? Does it actually win me matches? And maybe it does, but I just get my sense, like, just when I judge a lot of other cards in a lot of other archetypes, things like Vexing Devil don't work in Modern, or don't work in Burn, because you have the option to take 4 damage, or sorry, you have the option to take 4 damage and this creature doesn't enter the battlefield. Or if you don't have the life to give, you let Vexing Devil resolve and you just kill it with removal instead of being forced to take damage by like Boros Charm or something like that. So yeah, that's what I would have to say about Mill. It's missing something. Someone has to take a good hard look at that archetype and make some very serious changes to it. But I think something is there. I think something is there. Thomas 1980 asks, when you go to Twitch, will you upload all your streams to YouTube? I don't know about all of them, but probably I will upload everything to YouTube. It's like free content, so why not? I just can't do it immediately. Apparently if I become partner, I can't do it immediately. I have to wait like 24 or 48 hours to post it, but I will publish everything. So if you miss the stream on Twitch, you'll always be able to view it afterwards on YouTube. I just happened to see that this is a question. Kyoka66 asks, Nikachu, do you think the power level of Standard is currently too high? I have no opinion about that because I don't play Standard. I don't play Standard at all. Probably, I don't know. I don't know how many decks are available, but so long as, if there's like 3 or more decks, if there's at least 3 playable decks in Standard, I think that's fine. You really can't ask too much of Standard. Honestly, you just can't. It's hard for them to balance Standard. We have had balanced Standards in the past, but in general, if there's at least 3 playable decks, if there's 3 competitive decks, then whatever they are, it's good. Cone Morris asks, the power of Mono Green Stompy is that you have turn 4 kill pretty much every time. With this in mind, isn't Stompy kind of better than Burn because it's as fast but has a better late game? So the problem with Green Stompy is that it's easier to interact with than with Burn. Burn is harder to interact with because the burn spells just go directly at your face. So unless you have counter spells, I mean, you really can't do very much about it. Whereas when it comes to Mono Green Stompy, there's like an infinite amount of removal. Like every deck packs removal. Every deck has some way to kill creatures. So your plan is like Merfolk's, which is technically the worst win condition in the game. You play creatures, you hope they don't get countered. You attack with them, hope they don't get blocked, hope they don't get destroyed. You deal damage, and you have to rinse and repeat this process until your opponent's life total goes from 20 to 0. That's hard. That's actually really, the win condition is really, really tough. That's why Burn is, not only that, creature combat can be complicated. It's hard to know, okay, do I attack with these creatures? What are the blocks going to look like? Am I going to win any exchanges? Whereas with Burn, I mean, not only is the win condition powerful, but it's also just easy to execute. Boros Charm you. Good game. So I would say Burn does have a better win condition than Stompy. Of course, Stompy has a better late game than Burn, but Burn's plan is to kill you before that late game happens. We have great conversation going here today. Great conversation. Loving it. I think we're gonna keep. I don't know. We're gonna keep going until my brother arrives, because my brother's gonna arrive. Then I gotta go to the post office to pick up some last bit of stuff, and then we're gonna start recording some videos, and it's gonna be beautiful. Love the conversation. De Pala Pila Pala. That is a sweet name. I love it. How likely do you think Aether Vial is to see a ban? Not high, especially now that Humans has been brought down. It turns out Humans, is human. So I was concerned for the banning of Aether Vial when humans was the #1 deck in the metagame. They had a winner's metagame of somewhere between 9 and 10%. It was very high, and it looked like nothing was stopping it. So the Wizards has like only one other option if they don't want to print like a hate card for humans, and that is to ban something from the deck. And what are you gonna ban? Like Champion of the Parish, Meddling Mage, Thalia? Like everything's like weird to ban, but something they could realistically ban is something like Aether Vial or Cavern of Souls. And you know, a lot of people have been complaining about Cavern of Souls for a very long time, especially the control mages, because since Cavern of Souls, a lot of counterspells have been rendered really weak ever since then. So that's a problem. Aether Vial right now I think is very, very safe, but I would say that, you know, I would like to remind everyone, because when Humans was around and was winning a lot, people just assumed, oh, they cannot ban Aether Vial. It's being played in Spirits and Merfolk and Death and Taxes. They would never touch that. Wizards can ban anything, all right? Nothing is safe. I'll just repeat that nothing is safe. Oh, that's my brother. Hold on, give me a second. We'll still definitely do it. We'll finish that question and 3 more questions. Come up. So nothing, absolutely nothing is safe in Modern. Any card can get banned for whatever reason that Wizards wants to do. So just making sure that everyone knows that nothing is safe. You can't buy a card saying, oh, this will never get banned for this or that reason. No, like the Wizards under any condition will just do whatever they think is necessary and right. So and that's just that. Right now, Aether Vial, very safe. There's not a chance it's getting banned at this moment. There's no reason for them to like ban it out of nowhere. So I would not be worried about Aether Vial getting banned. So if you want to buy into the card, you know, go for it.
Karn the Great Creator says Aether Vial was banned.
Basically, yeah. I mean, cards like Karn the Great Creator, you know, put cards like Aether Vial in its place, as you can see in like the last few videos that I've done. Or that, yeah, just watch the last Eldrazi-tron video. That basically says Karn the that just shows the positioning of Aether Vial thanks to Karn the Great Creator. All right, 3 more questions. Brian Gnomes, how do you feel about double masters? I feel nothing for this set, yeah, because I don't know what's in it.
No fetch lands.
Yeah, there's no fetch lands, but I don't really care about the fetch lands. I don't play many decks with fetch lands, so I would say, like, whatever. It's good that we have another master set. We're going to see some reprints, so I hope that's going to make it I hope that makes Modern more accessible. So I'm happy that they're rolling out more of these master sets. I just hope that people aren't going to give Wizards shit for it, because like Wizards gave like 3 master sets in a row full of reprints, and then everyone said, "Oh, Wizards, you're terrible. This is all crap. You don't know how to make a master set properly." And I'm like, they just gave you like 3 master sets with billions of reprints, and yeah, the packs are expensive, but still, it was a reprint. They still reprinted everything, and the response, Wizards says, "Fuck it, we're not going to make any more master sets anymore because, you know, you're all complaining about it, so we're not going to do it for a little while." And then all of a sudden, people are like, "We need reprints." I understand, you know, you all want Wizards to reprint things at a cheaper price, you know, make the boosters lower, but they're just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. They're going to reprint the cards. The cards will never get super cheap, but the cards aren't going to get super expensive. That's going to be the role of these master sets and the reprints. Maybe some stuff can get cheap over time, but in general, they're just trying to fix the price of cards so that they don't get too expensive. Okay, this will not be one of the last 3 questions. DTie94 says, what's your PC update? It's put together, we're getting it together, and my brother and I are going to record our first league with it for the first time. It's going to be awesome. Brian Gnome says, is Chalice good versus Prowess? Yes. The answer to that is yes, it is good versus Prowess. It's not excellent, I would say. I would rate it a 6.5 out of 10, and I'll tell you why. Well, depending the Prowess deck, they might have a lot of 2-drops that they're going to side in post-board. Things like, you know, what's it called? Bone Crusher Giant, you know, and they can use Stomp. They might bring in, what else? Like 3 drops and 2 drops and 3 drops. But the point is, they're going to increase their curve. They're going to bring in a Braid 100% because against, you know, basically any deck playing Chalice of the Void, a Braid is going to be okay. So the point is that they're going to dodge it by a little bit. It can still win, but they can still answer it, or they're just going to play 2 drops and 3 drops. So it's good, but it's not as good as I would have hoped it would be. But it's not bad, that's for sure. Just don't expect, when you play Chalice on 1 or Chalice on 2, do not expect to always win the game. Sometimes they just have a bunch of creatures out, they dealt a bunch of damage to you, and you know what? They can even just throw stuff into the Chalice of the Void and you die anyway. All right, last question, and I love seeing questions from new people. FSTL0613, what would you recommend in Lurrus Merfolk for those who cannot afford Bauble? Just Lurrus. Just Lurrus, that's it. Just play Lurrus without the Bauble. It's all good. You're still going to leverage card advantage because once you have enough mana in play, you are going to just cast like an extra Silvergill Adept, an extra Lord of Atlantis per turn. I don't think the Lurrus Merfolk deck demands Mishra's Bauble. Sometimes I'm like, I don't really want this Mishra's Bauble because I really want like just a card, like some utility card or something in its place. Like removal or something, I don't know. So I would just say, just play a normal Merfolk deck, nothing special, just with Lurrus. That would be my recommendation. Or maybe a quick question. Lassie asks, got 60 euros to spend on Magic. Can I build Merfolk with it? Yes, you can build a budget version of Merfolk. I'm pretty sure you can get like a pretty good, like a decent budget version on Magic the Gathering Online. Or if not, you can build one of my budget Modern Merfolk decks. Just look up budget Modern Merfolk with Nikachu and it should be good. All right, so that's going to be it for today. My brother and I have a lot of things to do. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to probably ramp out more content. I'm probably not immediately moving to Twitch but don't forget that if you want to be ready for when we do go to Twitch, it's twitch.tv/Nikachu MTG. You put that in your browser, you'll find me. Follow me on Twitch. I think we're over 60 followers already, which is great. We've pretty much already made affiliate, and I haven't even streamed once on the platform. And you know, if you want to support the channel, there's always like patreon.com/Nikachu MTG, all the good stuff. So we had some great conversation today. I love it. I hope to hear all of you really soon, and we're going to gotta keep each other company, and we're going to continue live streams, and don't worry, we're going to be back tomorrow, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, as usual. I think that is going to be the standard time we're going to see each other throughout the week. So thank you very much for joining me today. This has been Nikachu, drinking down another delicious cup of coffee of Nescafe Gold Dark Roast with all of you. Thank you very much for joining me today. Take care.